I remember talking to a mate and him telling me that these guys should have already had a trilogy by now. Yeah, it's true, we know the score, boxing always moves too slow. But this is a moment as well to be grateful that the fact that this fight is happening. Look at the likes of Kovalev-Stevenson. Look at the current situation, Usyk-Fury. Super fights that we either didn't get or it really doesn't look like we're going to get. We are getting this one. It's only just about 2 weeks away. It is locked in. Two names that have been associated for so long, they are going to meet. I think they've both got a point to prove here beyond the W. They are both kind of spiteful characters. They got a bit of that street about them. I like it. We do have a reason to be excited. If it's true that they're not quite at their peak anymore, I still think it's kind of fair to say that they're in their prime. Spence somehow just got out of that car accident with minimal injuries. He came back and he's looked pretty solid to me. And Crawford, he hasn't been in many tough fights. He doesn't take many licks. He's the one who usually dishes out the punishment. These guys are at least 85%, if not 90%, of what they were. So I was recently checking out Spence's last performance against the Cuban Yordenis Ugas. It was a very willful and gritty performance by both guys. But the thing that really stood out to me was just how long ago the fight was. This habit of inactivity, I don't like it, because particularly if a guy loses, it's always brought up. Oh, well, you know, he was a bit ring rusty, the inactivity didn't help. We don't want that hanging over this event at all, but it is an unavoidable statistic going in. Other than that, though, I thought Spence looked very good. It's his usual kind of bricks and mortar approach. He doesn't necessarily have the skill set you associate with a pound for pound. He was almost over-rotating, over-eager as he was coming in, but he just banks on his chin, his physicality and his pace, that you are not going to be able to outdog him. And where his skill, that subtle skill comes into play that isn't immediately obvious, is that he knows when to use the basic shots, when to go to the body, when to throw in that left uppercut. He is doing more punching than thinking, which is often to your benefit. And he's got no problem with punching with you. That is quite a powerful mindset. The moment in which he got shook, when I initially heard of it, I was like, wow, Errol Spence got a bit wobbled. When I watched it again, it came from a moment of distraction, didn't it? The mouthpiece comes out, and he seems to motion to want to go get it. It's like he assumes, wrongfully, stupidly of him, that the ref was going to intervene. And then he ends up getting copped with a good right hand. But then look at the way he reacts. He smiles, he keeps going forward, and he takes charge again. There was no real nothing to write home about there for me. He does generally seem like the sturdier of the two, and he probably has fought the better competition, fought certain guys when it mattered a bit more. If he can turn it more into that dogfight, that's when his attributes might be able to pay dividends. Now, in Crawford's last fight, we had him dispatching David Avanesian, who just completely wasn't on his level. It was a pretty brutal stoppage in the end. And before that, we have the pretty nice stoppage, the only stoppage, of Sean Porter's career. Problem is, Porter was just about to retire. So it's just not the same as being the only guy to stop someone if it's halfway through their career, yeah? Think Rodrigo Valdez against Benny Briscoe. Michael Nunn against Sambu Kalambe. If you stop somebody and then they never get stopped again, that's impressive. If you do it and it's their last fight, just think of the mindset. You find your bum on the canvas and you know you're about to retire. It is just not the same as if the same situation occurred in your first world title fight. So you give him some kudos, but you put things in perspective. It did, however, show that ability to kind of go through the gears. Spence can be a little bit one-paced with what he does, and he does give you a lot of opportunity to hit you as he goes forward. If his strength in his chin is good enough, then he could start to find the cracks, the kind of cracks we maybe saw in Crawford against Kavalauskas when he was arguably flawed. But if not, he is going to be given Crawford, the superior tactician, the guy who's got more weapons, better punch placement, better punch variety. He's going to be giving him quite a lot of target for him to use his imagination against. And I think that's at the heart of why most people are picking Crawford, including myself. I just see at some point, maybe kind of the clever shot he hit at Kell Brook with, he's going to walk Spence onto something. And it doesn't have to be that he's facing the hardest puncher. But remember, Crawford has stopped everyone since he's been at welterweight. His KO percentage seems to have increased as he's gone up. It's the opposite of Floyd Mayweather. And maybe he's looking for that finish. It's almost like he doesn't like fights to go the distance. He can call upon a certain spite and savvy to find the moment, and then he goes through the gears and then he turns into a shark. And I think through punch placement, through it being a punch that Spence isn't prepared for, he will create that situation, and then he can maybe finish things. And if not, then I see Spence becoming a little bit dispirited, a little bit swollen up. Maybe not as bad as he swelled up that eye on Ugas. That thing was horrible. But a bit beaten up, shown to be a little bit one-paced, and still keeps things kind of competitive, but ultimately drops a unanimous decision. But how do we all see this one? What is boxing's fight of the year? Who knows, maybe we will get a trilogy, depending on how explosive and entertaining this one is. I hope it brings more eyes to the sport, the right kind of attention, not these freak shows. How do we all see this one going? Who are you picking and how?